this great country. We thank you for the opportunity of serving this county. Lord, just help us now as we go into this business, that we will do the business in a way that will be pleasing to you and help the citizens of Hardy County. Thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and our first item of business is going to be approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda? If not, we will open for a motion to approve the agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion from the board? Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
We'll move on to the approval of the minutes from the August 12th meeting. We'll go ahead and open for a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, Jim. Do we have a second? Any further discussion on the minutes? Any public comment? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we'll move along to our proposed IT policy. I think that Christy is going to give us a brief presentation, and she has this in your package as well. Good morning, Christy.
Good morning. Okay, in your packet, there is a short draft information systems computer policy. And the reason that we are doing this is because in our financial audit for year-end September 2013, it was suggested by Larson Allen that we come up with a written policy for IT. So I've come up with this short one for review and comments from the board.
Does anyone have any feedback on the IT policy for Christy?
Will this cover what Cliff Larson Allen needs to make us?
Yes, their main reason for doing so is for our accounting programs need to be password protected. So that's the first bullet in here, that all accounting programs will be protected with password access. And each person would have their own separate password.
Just to make mention too, just so you guys know, prior to this policy being put in place in our accounting program, we currently do have password on the program, but Larson Allen's suggestion was that we have individual passwords. There is a main password that's used by all the users, and so to just kind of reinforce the IT protection, they want us to go to individual passwords. So I just want to make that clear that we do have a password protection on the program itself, but we're going to individual passwords now.
Christy, is each computer also password protected, like logging in the morning?
No.
So we don't currently, I mean, anybody could feasibly walk in and get on one of the desktop computers. So is that something that we're going to consider changing with the implementation of this policy?
What I understand, I think in order for us to do that, I think we have to be on a server. Because right now, for example, for public records request, if Bill or Sarah have something, I go to their computer. So if it's password protected and they're not there, I won't be able to retrieve the public record.
And our logic too has been that everything on those computers is public record, so what difference does it make?
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons. that's actually the main reason we never have done passwords on individual computers, because of the fact that it was considered public record anyway, anything that's on the computers. And for that, what Chrissy stated, if someone were to come into the office requesting something and one of us wasn't there, and not being able to access the public record for that individual who's coming in at the time, we just decided not to do the passwords.
I guess my main consideration for asking is I'm assuming that gives you access to someone's email, which, you know, reviewing is of course public record, but, you know, you all have specific email addresses, and that opens that up for someone else to send an email on your behalf. So, you know, I think that probably something we should consider in 2015 is maybe having a centralized records where everyone can have like a home share file to share records into, and that way you can have the privacy and security on your email or your account.
Yes, I understand that. And as far as documents themselves on the computer, those are pretty accessible from a shared folder that we have. I think the only concern about the emails would be that someone, I mean, if we put passwords on our email account, we can't put all of those emails into the shared folder. So, I don't know. It's just something that we have to work out on how the protocol of how we would handle that if someone were in the office and we had to access an email account, you know, to retrieve an email, because those can't all be shuffled into the shared folder.
Okay.
You know. I think it can be done. We just have to figure out how to work it out.
Hypothetically, if someone's in the middle of an email response to some question or something that we're working on, and they leave the office, and the perfect storm arises, and somebody walks in and there's no one sitting there, and they say, "Oh, look," and they sit down and edit and change the content of that email. Hypothetically, if there's no protection there, that could happen.
You're right.
That email could be sent, and then you say, "Why did you say that?" You look at it, like, I didn't say that.
So I agree.
That won't be the first time.
Okay, any other questions or discussion on the IT policy? Do we feel comfortable to go ahead and make a motion to approve this, or do we need more time to review it? What's the pleasure of the board? Chrissy, do you have a time frame that you need this adopted by?
Preferably today.
Okay.
I'll
So
get
then,
it by year end, fiscal year end. So
okay, so then we need to go ahead and adopt this policy today
if
and
you don't
force
have any
it.
other changes.
This is just specific to county purposes.
Okay. So we'll open for a motion to approve this policy. Do we have a second? Any further discussion from the board? Any public comment? Mr. Kirkland?
Frank Kirkland, Bowling Green, Florida. Well, a little skeptical. Wonder, like Bill said, that was my first thing. I don't see how you could jeopardize the public records with one individual having a password should they vacate the premises for whatever reason. And they got a computer there locked with a password. I think you should at least make it, I'm not totally against what you're doing here, I'm just, maybe you should make it to where more than one person had the password to any computer within your office. I'm not talking about giving me your password. I think you're jeopardizing losing public records. From somebody's vehicle. That's my comment.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? If not, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, we'll move on into our IDA draft budget.
Charlie, there's Charlie.
He's right here.
Sit small.
Good morning, Charlie.
Good morning.
All right, so we're back now for our final adoption of this coming fiscal year's budget for EDC IDA. We have had 2 previous months that we've presented the draft budgets to you, and you've taken those into consideration, looked over them, reviewed them, and we're now at the adoption process. So at this point, we will go over any final comments that Charlie has on the budget, any final comments or questions from the board, and then we would like to move into the adoption process and approve this budget.
The major change on the IDA's budget is that, per the board's request at the last meeting, the property management column in the general fund has been broken out into Tech River, the Grove, and the Commerce Park into 3 columns there on the left-hand side.
And we do plan on breaking out the incubator once we have an EDA budget.
That's right.
So we'll make an amendment probably in November to the budget to break out the incubator line item. But as Charlie said, this budget that we have in front of you today should give you a little bit better and easier viewing of the different classes within the IDA budget, specifically regarding those projects that we are currently managing as far as the Grove, Commerce Park, and the Tech River building. So you can see those expenses individually now rather than grouped together as a whole.
And then there were no changes. So Donald pointed out that there was one formula error in utilities on the EDA budget, or EDC, excuse me, and that was corrected under the utilities column. But other than that, there were no changes from the prior meeting on those budgets.
Sarah, can you explain a little bit about the second 2 pages where we have one with the proposed rent and one without the proposed rent, and what we're going to do with those?
Yes. So those 2 pages and those 2 budgets are actually your EDC budget. And as Vanessa just said, we have provided one budget for you showing our current expenses and our current living situation, where we are. This is what has been the norm and what will be, including the increase in rent that we see each March for where we currently are located on Main Street. The second budget that we've provided you is a breakout of what we expect it to look like if we were to move the EDC offices out to the Tech River building. And if you want to pull up the budget in front of you, that has the total expenses of $423,950. That is the budget that we have proposed if we move to Tech River.
So if you want to kind of look at those expenses now individually to kind of give you an idea of what the cost savings or differential would be, we can do that. And basically, we have taken out the $28,000 roughly that we pay in rent per year where we currently are. We've taken that out of this budget. We have a 5% increase each March on our rent where we currently are located. So that gives you an idea of over the next several years how the rent would increase at our current location. The other areas that we have changed would be, of course, the utilities. We actually will be, in a lot smaller space if we move to Tech River than where we currently are, so we're going to see a cost savings there. Currently, we're paying about $7,500 in utilities, and we've taken that line item down to $3,750 if we move to Tech River. Some of the other areas that would actually do a bit of changing would be our office supplies. We actually increased that amount moving to Tech River. And you might ask, why would your office supplies change? But the reason for that would be where we currently are, our copier, fax scanner, large machine that we have is owned by the Chamber of Commerce. And we utilize that system there. So if we move to Tech River, we will need to purchase our own copier. We also have talked about if we move to Tech River, should we go to some form of server system out there, that would be an increased expense, obviously an upfront cost and then some maintenance on that. So we've increased that line item some to include those expenses. And then those are the categories that we've actually taken as far as expenses go. Now, if you look at the income side, that also changes if we move to Tech River. Currently, we are bringing in $12,000 a month in rent from Main Street and CRA. They're renting space from us. Obviously, if we move to Tech River, the Main Street offices would still be needing to be located on Main Street, so that rent would go away. A lot of it actually ends up being a wash, what we take in from Main Street versus what we pay out in some of our expenses. So it may not be that big of a cut in our budget, but we did show that in the income area. So if you have any questions right now, I'd like to go ahead and answer those about the moving or any of the expenses.
If we stay where we are, I heard you say we have a 5% increase per year in our rent.
Yes, sir.
How much longer does that run? Because typically you'll use a CPI or PPI or something like that. 5%.
Ours is forever.
Yeah, that's
on the current lease agreement that we have. Now, I don't know if there's an ability to go ahead and, renegotiate that lease contract. I mean, I'm sure there is to some degree, but the way it's set up right now, we are on a month-to-month lease. We do not have a contract. We've exceeded the contract limit, and we're on a month-to-month lease that has a 5% increase every March indefinitely.
Any other questions or discussions from board members?
Madam Chair, has there been any conversation with the Chamber of what their plans might be if Nadia leaves?
We've had a meeting, actually myself and Jessica Newman and Stephen Southwell and Bill sat down and had a meeting about a month ago to discuss what would happen, or just to kind of start tossing it out on the table. If we did make this move, what would happen? Main Street has a space that they will be moving into, most likely, if we leave the current location. It is my understanding from the discussions that Stephen and Jessica have had, they are considering moving the chamber into the same space as Main Street. I don't think that anybody will stay in the current building that we're in if we leave. But the other two organizations do have a place to go. It is on Main Street. It's the old police building where the Cancer Society is.
I might add to that I've had numerous conversations, and no one has ever directly said to me that it's more appropriate to move or to stay. There is a lot of positives for us to remain on Main Street, and there certainly are some good reasons for us to move to the Tech River building. I had a conversation with Terry Axley yesterday, and he was totally neutral. They will handle Main Street if we separate. And I'm not real sure the chamber will co-occupy the same building as Sarah has said, but I really don't know what the chamber's intentions are at this point. So if you ask me today, before someone does ask me for a recommendation, I'd flip a coin, because I see as many benefits. I do think that the lease could be modified, but I also think that if we stay in that office space, that it certainly needs some improvements made to it, and all of that would of course have to be looked at, and I'm not certain it should be incumbent upon us to do the improvements. So that is our dilemma today.
Any other questions or comments from board members?
Definitely need to start talking about what we right now. We don't know what he might do with it. And a lot of vacancies on Main Street now. I think we're in a good position there to negotiate $12,000. Down to basically. I think there is some benefits to having all together.
We're having a little trouble here.
I think we need to start negotiating with FL, see what we can do there, because definitely, I think there's some advantages to all of them staying in the same office. Definitely, when we make a final decision on this, I think we need to talk to them.
Any other questions or comments from the board members? Now,
Which side do you want to be on? Which side do you want to be on arguing? This is debating on the debating team in college.
Lori, hold on just a minute.
Okay.
Christy, I want her to turn her mic up because it won't go through the streaming. I apologize. Can you flip his mic? Can you do Lori's up so it won't pick up on the streaming?
tap on it so she knows.
Just test so she knows. Is it showing up?
Top middle. Toward the end.
Keep tapping, Lori. Sorry. The new system, we're still working on some things. It is on. Diane is choosing right now. I apologize, but it won't pick up the screen.
My comment is, if you ask me to debate either side, I could. Bill said there are positives both ways. And there's probably some negatives both ways, so. It's gonna be an interesting decision. I think Mike is very right. We need to see if we can get a little bit better lease before we make a decision.
So I think from, to kind of maybe change the subject a little bit, I think what everybody is saying is we would like to maybe have some more information in our October meeting and come back with what FL is willing to do, pros and cons of both, so we can really weigh that out and debate that as a separate subject in our October meeting. Is that the consensus of the board? So for the purpose of our budgets, we can adopt with both scenarios. That way we'll be prepared to move forward with whichever of the two scenarios we want to move forward with. We are waiting on the resolution for the budgets to be delivered, so we are probably going to go ahead and take about a 5-minute recess.
And I would recommend adopting probably without the move, and then if we choose to move, we'll amend. That would be a better approach.
We actually don't have to amend the EDC budget at all throughout the year. It's not incorporated into the financial statements. So it would be fine to adopt both of them.
Okay.
Repeat that.
The EDC budget is a nonprofit and not a governmental entity. Even though it's a component unit and incorporated into the financial statements, the budget is not. So the budget does not have to be amended throughout the year, such as the IDA budget, and Larson Allen doesn't incorporate that into the financial statements. So it's basically a template where it doesn't have to be formally amended each month like the IDA.
Okay, that raises an issue, and I'd like to meet with you and Ken on the proper adoption of the IDA's budget by resolution and how the EDC should be treated as a component unit. I'm not certain about that. So, Madam Chair, I'd like to take a recess to do that.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and take 5 minutes enough time. We'll take a 5-minute recess and we will be back at 9:05.